Alright. Has anyone got anything specific they want to do other than just kill PRs?
I'd like to talk about my sample data thing at some point. But
okay, well, first, before we talk about that directly, I want to talk about a related topic. You know, I've been annoyed, and I sent out that email about what I called ghosts in our repo, namely binaries that get deleted and are still being tracked by Git. Whether through Steve's PR or through anything else, if we get to the point where we remove those sample data images, we're going to have a bunch of megabytes of ghosts floating around in our repo still. And one thing that I'd like us to consider, we don't have to do it, but it's something to consider, is that we may want to, at some point, purge our repo and basically force everyone to get a fresh, basically, we clean out the repo, or we clean our Git history and force push it over our main repo. It would force all existing developers to re-grab the main repo, but that way our repo download will come back down to size. Now, even as it currently stands, our repo isn't that big. It's only, what, something like 20 megabytes maybe?
yeah, but it's mostly
these files.
The full Git history is about 40 meg.
And there will be times later with stuff like this that happens again. You may come across later decisions where we add values. I think it's something that we might want to consider to have in our toolbox, where we do allow ourselves the possibility of purging the Git history, pruning it, and then force pushing it back up that way.
That idea makes me exceedingly nervous. I do not like that idea.
Why not?
Just in case it goes horribly wrong.
Well, I mean, it might cause problems, but it shouldn't.
But this has happened before, at least once, where we had to fix this on the SunPy repo.
Right, but
that's short. Albert is basically talking about rewriting the entire history from the bottom up.
That's right. That's right. It'd have to go from basically near the beginning of SunPy.
Yeah.
I would, for the sake of 10 megabytes in the Git download, I would argue strongly against that.
Well, again, like, okay, but I think the door's open for this kind of discussion on that. Because I think that, you know, like I said, it may be on the threshold of being too excessive for something like 10 megabytes, but what if it were 20 megabytes? What if it were 100 megabytes? You know, I went crazy when Jack committed 70 megabytes to the repo, and I thought that was insane. Some other people with fatter bandwidth probably wouldn't bat an eye at a 90 megabyte download for SunPy. So, you know, this threshold is not, well, there's no obvious answer there, but to me, from my point of view, 10 megabytes for what would primarily be a text-only repo seems kind of ridiculous.
As I say, doing a complete clone of SunPy, I think is about 45 meg. If you call the whole Git history, you get about 45 meg. Which to me really isn't that bad, and it's not worth rewriting our history from the ground up to try and reduce that. When we will probably only shape about 10 meg of this.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to... I just would like to say that it's not that, to my knowledge, it's not that dangerous to change to prune their history and do a push. I mean, whenever we've done pushes in the past, and that's basically what you're doing is rewriting the Git history. So it would be similar. You would just be pushing history that somebody manually deleted some files from.
Right. The biggest cost to us for doing something like this, and let's just say we accidentally let something like a gigabyte in there. Of course, we'd have to do something like this. But the biggest cost of doing something like this, not only the developers would have to re-grab the repo, but all existing pull requests would die. So that'd be annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. And the question is, I think, do we want to do this now, or do we want to wait till later?
I am quite happy with the size of our Git history.
Okay, so
We can make the download for the users smaller by just taking the data that way. And it won't get put into our tarball, and you won't have to download it off PyPy.
That's right. I
We're
mean,
only talking about people who want to become developers and do a full history Git clone. You don't even have to do that if you don't want to. You could clone the last 100 commits and still develop on top of it. You don't have to pull the whole history in when you clone. You don't even have to download it.
I don't know if that's true.
I'm pretty sure it is, because each of the...
It's true about... I think Git, you have to download the whole glob. I mean, it's well compressed and everything. Git?
You can definitely only pull a bit of the history. I can't remember whether if you do that and then you try and pull requests, it will work. But you can definitely only pull the last.
I don't think that's true. Yeah, I would dispute that.
Is there any way that could you make, like, if you wanted to do this, can you fix it on your...
There is a --def command to git clone, which I quote, create a shallow clone with history truncated to the specific number of revisions.
I can't really understand what you're saying, Stuart.
There's a --def argument to git clone.
What?
Def.
Okay, well, I'll look into that. You might be right. Okay. Well, the point is, I would say that we should, part of the discussions that we've had about SunPy, and what I want to try to ensure is that we get things off, even when things aren't a problem, we try to lay down what's acceptable and what's not, so that when problems do occur, we aren't making decisions at the last minute and without having discussed it at some length. And this is something that I still envision. We're going to accidentally screw up. We're going to let a PR in that lets in a big chunk. And we do want to be comfortable with what's acceptable and what's not for rewriting our Git history. We've made 2 relatively major Git rewrites, but they were all within the span of something like a few days, or like a day, or like a week or something, where it might have screwed up some people's repos or probably not. But we do have to be aware that there is the possibility that a PR could slip in, and we don't notice it for a long time simply because no one's Git cloning our repo. You see that's happening. And so, obviously, Stuart's very reluctant. I'm much more willing to rewrite the Git history. But I want to get this on people's radars as something that can and we might be forced to do in some ways.
Yeah,
I guess if we stuck in a massive file, like another 10, 20 meg blob in one go in PR, then I would be okay rewriting the history, because we'd need to get rid of that. What I'm not happy doing is completely rewriting the entire history all the way back to the beginning to remove the small sample files that we have in there at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I guess, the question we really need to ask ourselves is that when we want to do the 1.0 release, do we want to have this in there or not? If we're at that point and we still have these 15 megs, I don't know. I could go either way, but I think that's basically the question, right? Do we want to have like a clean repo? Is it worth sort of cleaning it up and taking the risk of messing with the Git history, or not? That's all.
To my mind, these things are part of the history of SunPy. I like the idea of having one canonical history that tracks the repo all the way through. The point of version control to me is somewhat removed if you go through and rewrite it every now and then, especially when you don't really have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, because unlike some of those other things that got committed by mistake, right? These files were there for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So pruning them out is kind of sort of erasing history in some way. Yeah.
The thing is, if we go through and remove these files from the history, and someone checked out the 0.3 and tried to run the examples on 0.3 for some reason, it won't work.
That's true. That's a really good point. We break our past releases by doing this.
You break everything by doing that.
Yeah.
The point is, those files were supposed to be there. They should stay there. I definitely think that if we add any more big binary files, then we're going to have to rewrite and get rid of them because they shouldn't be in there. I'd hope that we'd find them before that became a major undertaking. Well, I would be willing to do it even if it was a major undertaking. It's stupid to leave them there. But the things that we've actually been relying on in all our code examples for the last 2 years, 3 years, should probably stay there.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
It's boring.
Well, I guess, does that satisfy you, Albert? Do you want to close the argument, the discussion on that?
Yeah.
For these files? Certainly for other files, if they come in the future. Talk about it again.
So is the policy in the future then that there'll be no bits files, no... That's it, there's everything we have in here is going to be code only? And what's the policy going forward?
Test data, i.e. test data that's measured in sub 100 kilobyte lumps. That's added to the repo and not changed.
So what is he? 3211A.
Small amounts of data, but what constitutes small?
Things not larger than 100 kilobytes-ish, to my mind.
Okay.
One of the things bigger than that.
Yeah, I think that should be written down somewhere if you're going to go forward with this.
It's a bit of an arbitrary limit. I don't know how to pick the arbitrary limit.
It doesn't matter if it's arbitrary or not, it just has to be defined somewhere. Because we've already had the situation where a couple of people have tried to include test data of some kind or another, so...
Yeah, and we've also had this discussion for the like the Chianti stuff, right? Those data files.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between test data and data files to run code. The latter is not allowed. For a start, one assumes that changes more often. Whereas test data is in theory fixed, right? You might have to update it occasionally, but you shouldn't in practice.
Yeah, but it's a similar discussion, right? It's about keeping the repo light and not including things that don't absolutely need to be there. So at least having a policy, whether it's arbitrary or not, having it written down could be helpful for developers.
No, I agree. It's something that we should. We really need a better repository for this data. I know we have our developer docs, but I really need a complete overhaul. Like, we need a better place to put this developer information. We say, oh, we should write this down somewhere. Some of it's in the wiki, some of it's in the dev docs, some of it is floating in the ether.
Yeah.
Someone should rewrite our dev docs.
Probably. By the way, I want to add, I've just been doing some reading up on shallow clones with Git. It was starting this year, 2014, that they actually fixed it so that you could actually do pull requests from that. Prior to that, it was not very useful to do shallow clones. So it's actually a really pretty good recent development on Git. So something to consider if you ever have to work with other repos that have lots of cruft in them. Used to be that you could develop that way, but you'd have to send in everything as patches. You couldn't actually push or pull or do pull requests. So shallow cloning was not useful at all prior to this year, apparently. Well, mainly not useful. Just for Git.
That's neat. On the topic of dev docs, someone should check out the link I just posted in the chat to Git Wash, which is like a generic get started with Git set of documentation, customized your project. So, if someone wants to volunteer to take on our dev docs, then
Well, I think It's not part of 0.6, right? I think that's the top priority.
DevDocs is a bit release independent, really, though. But yes, I agree. 0.6 is higher priority.
So can we quickly talk about my PR?
Yes, I left some comments on it. The general principle looks pretty good.
Sorry, here we go. Here, so all this is fixing the issue 863, which is to get rid of our sample data from the repo, and all this does is create a little script inside of data-sample called download, and it'll just go out and download the data. It uses the download file function that's provided by SunPy, which creates a nice little progress bar for the download, which is quite nice. And it has the ability to look at multiple URLs. So I'm currently hosting data on Hesperia, which is a local server here. That could be like a backup server essentially, and then we'll put the data on data.sunpy.org, which is a server that Kader Stuart has. So it'll check to see whether the stuff is available and then get it, and if it's not, then it goes to the next server and just grabs everything. And I just fixed it such that it will download it. I've created a new config parameter, which is sample_dir. So the user by default it'll be under your data directory, under a new directory called sample.
I kind of see why you've done it that way. I would partly argue that it should just be under the data directory, because if the user changes the data directory, the sample directory won't change unless they also update the sample directory.
But you can do it again.
If the user updates the data directory, the sample directory won't change. It'll still be in working directory /data.
The user changes the sample directory.
No, if the user changes their data directory, the sample directory won't move. I'm not necessarily sure whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like it that the user could be able to put their sample directory whatever they want. I don't know. It doesn't have to be with respect to the data directory, but I am open to discussion on that.
The thing is, because maybe what we should do is keep them separate, but instead of having it put in data, put it in the working directory /sample directory, so they are completely logically separate. So instead of having it being data /sample data, just make it sample data.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you could end up just the present working directory. I don't think is a good choice, because you'll end up with bits of data just lying around everywhere.
No, it's the SunPy working directory, which defaults to home /SunPy.
Oh, you want that directory? Okay.
I mean, so currently, Stuart, I mean, people can fill in whatever the heck they want in there, right? So the question is what we want as the default.
I suggest making the default just sample data. So that inside the SunPy directory, you have the SunPy config file, sample underscore data, and data.
Nope. Yeah, sure. That's fine with me. Anybody care about this enough to say something about it?
No.
I don't really care. Going once, going twice. Sold. Sample. Okay.
Also, you should add
But no, just
you should add a shortcut for the one line.
Well, wait, it's a 6-5 flying, right?
Yeah, the shortcuts. Is there any way to create those shortcuts programmatically? Because what I prefer is that we have like a dictionary that's defined at the top, and then just have a nice little for loop that defines these things. That's beyond my Python foo abilities.
You could make an object that behaves like a module.
Make an object?
If you make a class called sample data or something, you could do SunPy.data.sample.aaa171, where aaa171 is an attribute of the class.
Yeah, but you'd still have to generate that attribute for the class.
Yeah, you can do that using set attribute in Python. There's a built-in function called set attribute which allows you to programmatically generate attributes of classes.
Okay. Okay, I'll fix that then.
Then you could actually get quite fancy if we're going to do that, because you could make the files download on access of the property.
Ha ha ha. Ah. Okay, I'll have to think about that. That is quite fancy. I don't know.
So you could make them, you could programmatically generate the properties that then automatically download the data if the data file doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about that, but you could in theory do it.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit strange because it takes the power away from the user. I feel like the user's...
You could also have it downloaded or something.
Yeah. Well...
At least what you can do is make it raise a nice error if the user hasn't downloaded the data. Like, you haven't downloaded the data yet, run this first.
Right. Yeah. That I'm much happier with that as opposed to having it download the data on the fly.
I don't know. I kind of like the idea of having the data downloaded on the fly because it means that you can run the same script, or that you don't have to do anything before you run an example, and it will always work as long as you have an internet connection.
Just wait for their attacking.
Yeah, but now that would mean a lot more work because it would have to check whether the files are there. Well, no, that's not. Well, let me think about this. Let's maybe move on to the next topic. What's going on?
This is the next topic. Silence.
So shall we go to pull requests or something?
That we were on pull requests.
Well, or the next pull request.
It's turn.
We should try and kill some pull requests.
Oh wait, one more thing. Sorry. I have this little utility called to test whether URL exists, like whether it's online. I didn't find that in SunPy, so I just wrote something simple. It's sort of built into the download thing for them.
We already have
One of these has something. But
We have something that does something slightly different, and it's currently, so I want to replace that as well. And what I wanted to put it is in net.util, but there is no net.util. Should I just create it? Go ahead and create it.
yeah.
There is util.net.
So you do it.
Okay. Okay. util.net. I will put it there. Thank you.
PR 1170.
When I got it there. Yeah.
So then we also
Yep.
Ah, 1170 you said?
Wait. No.
Are you sure? There's no other way to call these things, but like through numbers? Stereo, high, camera 1, camera 2, that's the standard way to refer to these?
Or the instrument.
Sorry, I didn't hear that again.
The instruments. I mean, the instruments are just called high 1 and high 2.
Right, high 1 and high 2. Okay. It looks good to me.
Looks alright to me. Looks like all the rest of them.
Yeah. I feel like at some point we're
hang on a
going to
minute.
back to this and move all of this stuff, all of these tables of numbers into some other form. Getting pretty unwieldy.
Funny looking.
You're missing a return at the end of stereo.py.
Okay, your turn. Yep.
Missing a return to where?
At the end of stereo.py, I've got a little complaint.
Wait.
Yeah, alright.
But I suppose you could just accept it, right?
Oh.
What?
Typo.
Typo. Typo!
Where's the typo?
Line 84 in stereo.py. Try to identify when the fits metadata DDES not have the correct.
I think I copied that from somewhere else.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's also on line 57 of that file.
Should these hold up this PR?
Yes.
Yes. Wow.
And line 24 of that file. Fixed.
Okay. Looks pretty straightforward to me. You can have my +1.
Any objections? No objections. No. No.
Why would there be objections?
Sold. Okay, moving on. I should probably write some tests.
Oh my God, yeah. You
Uh-oh.
need tests and documentation. You're breaking your own rules.
Shouldn't there be a changelog entry?
Then a changelog entry, oh my God.
Damn it! I would do that. Does someone else want to go through the pull requests? Because it's noisy.
Let's see. What about 1157? Well,
Some disagreement on this one, right?
Yeah. I was confused. Is David? No, there's no David.
Nope. Very light meeting, likely attended meeting.
Yeah.
So this is a fix to get the paper to work. Is that right?
Yeah, there was a the Helio stuff wasn't working. So I went ahead and fixed it. But then David, I don't know. It's confusing what David. He then came in and did something else, and then I'm not sure what. It's unclear to me what's happening.
I think this needs a discussion with David.
Yeah. I don't know. What other PRs are open? I mean, we went through and talked a lot about the milestone 0.6 PRs. What is this? Maybe we should just talk about the 0.6 stuff. And see where people are with that, with progress on that.
What's the timeline again for that?
End of the month.
This month.
Yeah, end of the month will be feature freeze. So, let's see.
How long I have to decide on a variable now.
Jack, you weren't on the Andrew. You guys weren't on the last telecon, I think, talking about 0.6.
I wasn't either, so really it's just you and Stuart.
No, Andy was there.
Yes, that was Labor Day, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. It was Labor Day when we make all the big decisions on major U.S. holidays. So, yeah, so the timeline for 0.6 is feature freeze at the end of this month, and then one further month to fix everything, get everything working properly, and then release November 1st, I think. So we've moved everything. Currently, we have everything tagged milestone 0.6 for things that we want to make it into 0.6. Is there anything that is missing there, or that people definitely want in 0.6 that we?
I would make the case for my solar differential rotation stuff.
Yeah. Do you think you'll have time to have that?
I have tests, I have code, and just it's under review. If you could add a review label as well.
Where is it? Which one is it?
It's 1168.
Here it is. Okay, how does that sound to you, Stuart? You okay with that?
Sorry, say that again?
Differential rotation. Adding differential rotation to 0.6.
Would be nice. So, Jack, tell me, what does your MapCube pull request do?
Take map cubes and time-ordered map cubes. And if you go to the cutout service, right, you tend to pick one area that you're interested in, and then the sun moves underneath. So the field of view remains the same, but the features that you're looking at change. So what the MapCube derotation does is to basically take account of the solar differential rotation by moving all the shifting the images according to the center of the image, and then shifting them back so all the features approximately sit underneath the same pixels. You don't do it by it kind of assumes that you're looking at small patches of the sun for small amounts of time. So you don't do any true differential rotation according to the latitude. That's typically too much. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, so it just follows the center of the box, basically.
Yes, that's it.
So
yeah.
is it the same as cropping a box around a moving point?
Yes.
Well,
so.
except that, well, yes, in a way, except that the speed that the box moves depends on your latitude and.
Oh, sure. But I mean, if you pick a point on the solar surface, calculate the differential rotation curve for it, and then crop out around that box, is that the same thing?
If you take account of where the the position of the imager is, right? If the spacecraft is around Earth, you need to do all those calculations as well of where the change in solar E angle and.
Yeah, sure. I don't understand why this uses the template matching. What do you use the template matching for?
I don't use template matching. There's a piece of code in template matching which just applies shifts to an image. And so you use that in template matching, and use that in in this code as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. This is different to my one, which calculates the differential rotation for every pixel of the image and warps the image.
So that's a different. That is a different application. We don't do. This is not pixel by pixel. This is just.
Yes, I realise.
Assuming that the patch is small enough, and that the differential rotation in each pixel isn't small enough that you don't need to take that into account.
Yeah. That's fine. That's also cool. The first thing you need to do is rebase that pull request on branch, because it's got all the old crap in it again.
Again, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I
Otherwise,
was going to ask. Got a lot of commits.
otherwise, yeah, okay. I just wanted to understand that because I'm pretty sure there is a SolarSoft routine that approaches it a similar way to the way that my pull request does.
Yes, but there's also a solar. This is the way that well, the method that I've implemented is a common way. It's a cheap
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I've actually written something that does something very similar to yours before. It's like it wasn't that many lines of code to do it, but I did it for a quick hack. But it's definitely something we should add. That's just that's cool. I was interested in the difference between the two methods. I thought you were going to say what you did, but I wasn't sure.
So is this gonna be 0.6? Did I label it?
This is more. It's not just this pull request. It's the whole differential rotation branch.
Right.
Which includes, but doesn't the differential rotation branch depend on David's ephemeris calculations?
So the code that I've written does not depend on the David's WCS.
Yeah.
Whatever he's done, his ephemeris stuff. I
Okay.
don't know where that is. Is that in the
Well,
differential
No,
rotation?
but I mean, this stuff uses the ephemeris calculations, right?
No.
No. This is just a function of how the sun rotates, how it
I thought
surface rotates.
the calculation of the spacecraft location used the ephemeris stuff, but I could well be wrong.
It doesn't have to, but where does the calculation of the differential rotation go?
That's in what, the physics.transforms, is that right?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
So
well,
what I did in my pull request was to have a bunch of internal only functions which basically copy from IDL functions. They're in there just, they're meant to be internal, so there's that with the underscore with the intention that they will be replaced at some point once we have a complete ephemeris in there, because we don't. The current ephemeris that we have is not accurate enough compared to what SSW IDL brings, but the code that I've written is more accurate compared to SSW IDL.
yeah. Well, so, I mean, clearly this needs a bit of work. The question is, do we want to have it officially as part of 0.6? Or is this going to be... Or do we want it after because it's going to use some of the WCS stuff maybe, or...
Is the so WCS is for 0.6?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
So,
put
yeah,
this
okay.
afterwards then. Because there's probably a lot of the transforms that will be, that could be rewritten using the WCS stuff, and that's more important.
Yeah, I think that this will require a fair bit of work to base it on the coordinates package, especially.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we tag it with 0.7?
Yeah.
I tag the main branch PR with 0.7, not Jack's one.
Okay.
902.
Okay. Anything else that people really want in 0.6 that they're working on or are going to have done soon, or what?
The CD matrix stuff needs doing because that's a massive bug. 1145 needs fixing properly, actually made work, and somehow putting in. This is a massive bug. Big old cockroach.
So you want it? So currently it's tagged only with 0.5.
I've milestoned it 0.6, but also shoved a 0.5x label on it to remind me that it needs backporting.
Oh, I see.
Dan might quite like his Lyra flare detection stuff to get in if one of us has got time to go through and review that properly.
Yeah, I could do that. We can add that. Though we still haven't like reached a conclusion as to whether we want multiple ways to access this. Right, that was the main issue last time.
I should imagine actually that probably won't get into 0.6, but it still should be reviewed. I think what we shouldn't milestone stuff that we don't definitely want to get into 0.6. If stuff gets done before the deadline, then fine. But we should milestone the stuff that's actually going to hold up the release.
Yeah, I mean this code can definitely go in before 0.6, unless we want to do some major refactor. It's not that much stuff in here. The question is, do we really want it?
I was chatting to Dan about this at SIP-work, and there's not actually, I think he's got a bit more work to do on anyway, but there's not actually a huge amount of stuff. There's not actually a lot of code here.
Yeah.
I mean, he said he's going to take some of this out. So, you might have already done it, to be honest. I need to look through that properly. Oh boy, okay. I'm going to merge my changelog to stereo just in case anyone had a major objection.
We need to check it for spelling mistakes.
What else is in the 0.6 pile?
What about 115, 1156?
1156, that's not in the 0.5 pile, 0.6 pile. 1156, oh yes, where are we on this? Oh yeah, this is kind of broken. I'll milestone that 0.6 and I'll assign myself.
Is Rajul seems to be kind of out, right? Is that right?
I think they're all pretty busy.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to take any of the things that are assigned to me off me on this list?
Yeah, you've assigned quite a bit to yourself.
I'm going to bump that. Hang on, where's the testing issue? No. We also have a target of what, 80% test coverage by 0.6?
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom.
By the way, I can't seem to log into the server that you sent me.
So is the data there?
I just can't log in.
Interesting. It means you got that email okay then.
Yeah.
It's nice when that works.
Yeah, good job. Very rare that I get emails that are actually encrypted.
I can't remember what I actually said.
But it seems like I can't even contact the server. Is it on a different port or something?
21, which is standard FTP, right?
22, standard FTP.
No, 22 is standard SSH.
Oh, I'm assuming you're using SFTP. This is actually FTP?
It's just FTP.
Whoa! Whoa!
Well,
We don't use that anymore. Okay.
very cheap web host. I keep getting not connected to server too.
Okay, well now it seems like I can't log in.
No, I can't log in either.
Okay, good.
Alright, we're past the hour mark.
Although I can log in on my account. That's weird. Very weird. Are the files on your Hesperia account?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just put them and shove them on themselves.
Okay, yeah, there's no time. It looks to your server first, so the only thing that it would be doing is you're making people wait slightly to get their data because they're going to test your server. Okay, shall we finish things up?
Yeah, cool. People, swap 0.6 things, please. Please swap 0.6 things.
Working on it. Okay, thanks everyone.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.